We're live. Okay, I'm going to go live on two things because I just discovered this. I'm going back to trying to juggle more than one thing at once. So let's go on Instagram Live and let's do an AMA. Let's see. Double check. We're gearing up for our Indie World West Regional Final, and that is March 24th and 25th, San Diego, California. We've got April 7th and 8th, the Battle of the Best. I'm really excited about that one. Drive Nation Sports Complex, Dallas, Texas. So let's go on to here. Perfect. I figured it out. That's a good idea. Man, people have some good ideas, man. I'm always listening. So we're going to get on Instagram Live. My goal with the YouTube Live channel, if you could share this and you get value from it, share it and to help us get more subscribers. I'm trying to get to 1,000 by the end of this year. We're at 255. And we had 80,000 minutes watched this year. So I'd like to get that up too. So let's go live here. Okay, we're live in two spots. So I'm going to put this up here. And this is called an AMA, IndiHoops live show. We're going to talk about three things. Number one, rankings and tournaments coming up. It's peak season for AAU, club basketball, travel basketball, grassroots, whatever it is you want to call it that day. And we're going to talk about rankings, tournaments. We're going to answer questions and talk about what you guys want to talk about. And I'm going to read out some passages from books, because what I noticed, one of the biggest hacks you could ever do is download information into your brain. You download updates and software for your computer all the time. Well, reading great books is doing that for yourself. Reading books downloads the correct software into your brain, and 95% of people don't do it. And in a world where there's 7.5 billion people now, most people walk through life thinking that that everything's revolved around them. Well, you're competing with 7.5 billion other people. All of them want probably a lot of the same things that you want. And that's just the harsh reality. So let's get into it. I want to start off with this quote that I was reading in this book called Traction. I want to just make sure that we're on YouTube Live, so you can go to youtube.com/IndiHoops. Make sure you subscribe. My goal is to get us to 1,000. I'm just trying to see if I can share this on Twitter or anything like that. Okay, let's just one last thing. Pop out chat. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, let me know. Ask me anything. So I'm going to start off with this. So picture a small plane flying over the Atlantic Ocean. Halfway across, the captain announces, "I've got bad news and I've got good news. The bad news is that the gauges aren't working. We are hopelessly lost. I have no idea how fast we're flying or in what direction, and I don't know how much fuel we have left. The good news is that we're making great time." So just to talk about that, I think that all comes down to getting to places and going nowhere fast, mistaking activity for achievement. I've noticed that, and another part of that book that's pretty good is about simplify, simplify, simplify. So I see some tournaments, some clubs that have tournaments with, they're going to 2, 3, 4, sometimes a month, where they could save a lot of time. They're not progressing just because they're playing. If you do things in the correct way, you can do more with less. If you use the right tools, you use technology, the goal of technology is to get twice the result with half the effort. Twice the result with half the effort. So you gotta be smart to do that. Working hard. Los Angeles Clippers assistant coach Kevin Eastman said, "Working hard is the price of admission. We just expect everyone to work hard. That's not a differentiator in a world of 7.5 billion people." Okay? You got to be able to work smart. And working smart this year. How are you going to do that? So if you guys have any questions, we have a few people on here. Ask questions. We're going to go off that. Ask me anything. Okay, so there's that. So again, for those that you didn't hear, pilot flies over the ocean. So he gets on the Atlantic Ocean. He says, good news and bad news. The bad news is that I have no idea where we're going. The gauges aren't working. We're hopelessly lost, and I have no idea how fast we're flying. But the good news is we're making great time. So you need a roadmap. You need a GPS of how to have the best year possible. And what we focus on is 8th grade basketball. We're starting to reach the peak of an 8th grade year, but you could take this information and use it for yourself here. I wrote down our process. Let me go get that. I wrote down a process of what it takes in the 8th grade. So we'll start off with that. Hold on, Kent. It's funny, sometimes the numbers go up when you leave the room. One thing I recommend is this right here. It's called Moleskin. Look it up on Amazon. It's about 15 to 20 bucks. This is your journal. That's a game changer right there. What's up, Jay Nate? Just telling people to get their journal, Moleskin, write down their goals and where they want to, where they're trying to go. Let me wave at you. Jay Nate, make sure, that's what I forgot to do. YouTube, go to www.indielockers.com. Register for your profile if you are class of 2022. We had 20 signups on the site last night, yesterday. So let me go to this. Pin the comment. So here's the process. I kind of mapped this out last night. And my initial thoughts on that. Almost there. All right. Step 1, for sure. Step 1, I call it the 1-3-5 plan. Your goals and where you want to be in 1 year needs to be mapped out in a Moleskin or a journal. Step 2, research the best. If you're not on an 8th grade team right now, this is before the season, research the best club around and get feedback from people that are in the know. Call up a player in your area that played for a club that is playing Division I now or is about to play college. Pick their brain, take them out for lunch, dinner, ask them what they thought of the club team that they played for. You'll learn a lot from that. So you want to play on a team that is your level, but a little bit one step your level or one step above. You don't want to be on an elite top 10 team in the country when you're not playing, and you don't want to be on a really bad team that's beating everyone. So you got to find the right fit. Common sense. I said that you probably 2 camps in 8th grade max. You don't need more than that. I recommend getting a gym membership at LA Fitness or 24-Hour Fitness and playing against the grown men there. They're not very good, but they're a lot bigger, a lot tougher and physical. If you're a good 8th grade player, you should do fine with that. That's a key right there. I would like I like to play in at least one varsity league. If you're on a good 8th grade basketball team, you should be able to beat 50% of the varsity teams in your city if you're a very good 8th grade team. What's up, Coach Galloway, Bay Area Mamas? We're doing an Ask Me Anything. So anyone that wants to kick us off with questions, I'm here. So we're just talking about the process. Okay, so you start off with your goal and your plan. Then you research the best club for you. You meet with the coach and see if it aligns with what you're doing. Here's the number one rule here with the team. You play on one team only, and here's why. you need to practice consistently with this team at least twice a week, because if you play on a lot of different teams, again, let's read it again for the people that weren't on. Pilots flying over the ocean, Atlantic Ocean. I've got bad news and I've got good news. The bad news is that the gauges aren't working. We are hopelessly lost. I have no idea how fast we're flying or in what direction, and I don't know how much fuel we have left. The good news is we're making great time. So that's good news. That's good news. We're making great time. So you stay on one team because there's the highs and the lows of a college season, high school season, NBA season. And if you just switch at the first sign of adversity and you go to a different team, you don't have the buy-in, you don't have the investment, okay, that you need to learn. It's about getting to the next step. So you need to ride out some highs. You need to ride out some lows with a consistent group. Consistency is so important. So important. Gotta ride out those highs and lows, man. You gotta build character. Something that's lacking in a lot of West Coast teams. I don't know if it's like the sun brainwashing or something that we got out here, but name the last time a team west of the Mississippi. Name what year did a team from the west of the Mississippi win the NCAA March Madness? Trivia for you. Who can answer that? Okay, so we're going to pause right there, and hopefully someone picks up their fingers and writes a question about anything. Not being a lazy spectator. So one team only, practice, buy-in, meet with the coach, ask the coach, which tournaments are we going to be playing? What's his plan? Here's my plan. What's your plan? Is it a good fit? If not, go to the next one. You want to be the buyer, not the seller. So then the last thing is maximize your opportunities. Go to IndiLockers.com, get your profile, get your pictures up, get your video up so you can be ranked and reviewed by scouts. And you'll also get discounts to camps so you can save money, and you can also raise money. IndiLockers.com. What people don't understand is this. Number one, kids are better at social networking, and their networks are bigger than athletes are. I mean, than parents are. Watching the game last night on March Madness, some of the kids on the teams have more followers on Instagram than the NCAA March Madness has. Think about that. Maybe the kids should be paying NCAA because they have more eyeballs. Okay. So take advantage of that. What I'm saying on that is social media is so powerful. If you say, look, you get your Indy Locker, and we have it set up where you set up your account and you say, look, I'm trying to go to Vegas for this tournament. I don't have the money. I'm trying to raise like $50. We have features on there where you can raise that very easily. Okay, now we got questions going on. So let me address that one. I got 3 to go off of now. Okay, one is, how do you feel about kids being held back? Okay. I don't like it. I don't like holdbacks because it's what has happened is a lot of the top kids are holding back. So it creates this thing where like there's not really much of an advantage off of it. Like maybe there was when kids were first initially doing it. But then if everyone's doing it, I wish we could all make a pact that says nobody hold back, because we're all, most of them are all older, 1 year older, playing back, and no one hold back. So we could just go through the natural progression and we'll be right where we are anyway. That makes sense. So I would ask you, holding back, what are you trying to accomplish with it? I'm not hearing this academic thing. You're trying to do something that, okay, are you just trying to do it because everyone else is? Anytime you do something that everybody else does, it's called regressing to the mean. Everyone else does it, so you become average, if that makes sense. So what happens is you waste one of the most critical years of your development, because now you're playing people that are younger than you, and you're going to get away with bad habits. There's this scene that I always talk about. There's a movie called Searching for Bobby Fischer. It's a great movie. Is it Samuel L. Jackson that's in it? Yeah. So this kid is his chess master. It's called Searching for Bobby Fischer. He goes and plays chess in New York, and Samuel L. Jackson's there. I compare it to this in basketball. I think to be good at basketball, there's two different schools that you have to be good at. There's one school that is the outdoor pickup, trash talk, physical, no foul game. You have to be able to play in that environment because for a lot of different reasons. But then there's also the other more formal school of training to know how to come off of a curl, fade, basketball IQ, and very cerebral aspect of the game. So number one, when you're holding back, I think you're going to lose that part. Okay? Going back to that movie, Searching for Bobby Fischer, the kid used to go to the park in New York and play against some of the guys that were pretty good, but there's these homeless guys. They didn't understand the technical aspects of the game. They were good, and they just talked trash. And his chess coach told them, don't go to the park anymore. Why? I like going to the park. Don't go to the park. Because why? He was bringing his queen out too early, but he wasn't getting punished by the people in the park. So he started getting arrogant, and a false set of arrogance. We say confidence without self-esteem is arrogance. So he said, you're going to develop bad habits. So think about a holdback doing things that might not work at the next level, but he's training his brain that it works in a crucial window of development. If you guys watch my stuff, you know how sacred windows of development are, because when you're 0 to 5 years old, the science says that you should be able to learn 3 to 4 languages. When the window's shut, how many languages can you speak? The joke that I say is, who on this call knows what it's called when you speak 3 languages? Okay. And what's it called when you speak 3 languages? That's my question for you guys. Let me read this. I agree with people. Feel that the people doing the ranking praise it, and that's why it's like that. Yeah, so we're working on something that we're going to deduct some points and things if people are too old. There's going to be a deduction on that. We're working on revitalizing rankings. Opinion from Reach Legends. I think kids should be ranked by age, not class, even though rankings don't matter. It's part of our world today, and kids that stay with class more than likely gets the short end. So this is a topic that's pretty close to me. I got to coach a player that did not hold back, and it's kind of. I think it was a good move because his 8th grade year was pretty damn special because he was playing again. You get to play. We play against the holdbacks, and we use the holdbacks for developing our skill set. That's what we do. Okay, so I don't think it makes much of a difference at the end, and I don't see it. It just depends on what your goal is. Let's say that. I think kids should be ranked by age, not class. Okay, so Reach Legends, here's the problem. Now, I'm all for this. If you want to go outside the box, for a second, America is the only place that goes by grade. There's no college basketball. There's no NCAA. And until we adopt, which America usually never does, we always do our own thing that's different than everyone else. We use inches. We use miles. They use kilometers, centimeters. Most countries use Celsius. We use Fahrenheit, stuff like that. So most countries have 14U, 16U, 17U, but then they continue on to the pro ranks. The problem is, number one, you're running a tournament, right? We have this rule that, let's say we have this 8th grade tournament coming on for the Indy West Regional. We have this rule that, and every year it will happen at this tournament, I guarantee you, that you cannot be in high school and play in the 8th grade division. And people will be like, well, he's younger. He's younger than most people in 8th grade. That might be true. But we have this problem where it's like, look, you're playing varsity, though. Like, you're on a high school campus. Why are you playing in a middle school event? Even though if you're younger, you shouldn't play in it. So there is that thing where, yeah, you have to answer your question, Reach, you have to address that grade issue. Now, it's called trilingual. So my joke is this. If you speak 3 languages, you're trilingual. If you speak one language, or if you speak 2 languages, you're bilingual. What's it called if you only speak 1 language? You're American. So, yeah, thank you. So you got to address the grade issue. I've seen some situations where a kid was in 8th grade, but he was really young, and he played 13U the whole year. He played 7th grade, and then he skipped the 14U because he was in 8th grade. So he's playing 13U, and then he skipped it. The most important year he skipped. So I wouldn't recommend that. By the way, yeah, hit me up after this, man. It's been a long time. I want to see what you're up to, what team you're coaching, Coach Galloway. Thought you fell off the face of the earth. So, okay, so let's talk about tournaments going on real fast. March 24th, 25th, San Diego, California, Indy West Regional. April 7th through 8th, Dallas, Battle of the Best. April 13th through the 15th, IndiHoops Tip-Off Classic, Georgia. March 17th to the 18th, LA Bobcats tournament at Ladera Ranch, for those of you in SoCal. May 12th through the 13th, Zero Gravity's DC Review, Washington, D.C., for those of you out there. And go to youtube.com/IndiHoops and help me out by subscribing. Let's get some more questions going. I thought that was fun, those last ones. If you have some follow-up questions on that, let me know. May 11th to the 13th is the Indy World South Regional. And the June 28th through July 1st is the Indy World Final in Dallas, Texas. 64 teams, live streamed. A lot of surprises for you there. Really excited about Indy World 3. Indy World 1 was a really special event. It was kind of an experiment that we did that we thought was successful. Ended up, the Thunderstruck from Florida won. They had a kid on their team named Dudley Blackwell who won the MVP, but the emergence was of a player that wasn't even the attention of the event, Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes from Florida is the number 5 player in the country on ESPN, potential McDonald's All-American, and has a USA gold medal. So that's when we say greatness starts here. It's greatness starts somewhere. All greatness has a starting point. We like to be part of that. So you're starting a high school program. Give me one player you would love to have from 2021, 2022. Well, okay, 2020. Point guards are really important to me. Scotty Barnes would be a player that I would start with. 2020, I would go Scotty Barnes. What's going on, man? Ask me anything. It's AMA. I would go Scotty Barnes. I'm thinking Zion Collins, 2021. I'm just going to go off what I've seen with my own eyes at Indy World. And then 2022, they'd be in 8th grade right now. Let's go Amani Bates. How important do you think a sponsor is for a program to get invites to events? Are you asking, can you clarify, are you asking if a team is sponsored by Nike, Under Armour, or Adidas? How important it is? So I'm going to assume that that's your question. Okay. By the way, let me ask you real fast. What grade are you in right now? While I wait for that. Just going to look up. A shoe sponsor. Okay. So let's say you're not a shoe sponsor team, and things have changed a lot since I was doing it. My last basketball team, we were a 16 and under team. We had a lot of 15 and under players. We had a couple of Division I kids, and we would play 16U, but they were 15U guys, and we had a really good schedule. We were not sponsored. Okay, I'm going to get to that question later. So here's the deal. So there's a lot of opportunities to get in the same arena of the top teams. If you're really good and you have a relationship with tournament operators and you develop a reputation, let's say you're not sponsored, but you're a good team, you can play pre-live events. For example, April 13th to the 15th, you don't have to be sponsored. In the IndiHoops Tip-Off Classic, you don't have to be sponsored, but we have Nike, Under Armour, and Adidas teams there. There's a lot of events like that are not live periods. During the live periods, there's a lot of great events that are not sponsored, okay? But you still can get in those arenas. Pre-live events, Memorial Day in May, you can get in those arenas, and you can get in those arenas as a team pre-live period in July. For example, the Battle in Seattle, we had Nike, Under Armour, and Adidas. So you see the pattern coming up from Arkansas. So the sponsored thing, man, it's interesting. I want to see what happens this year, but you can just pay your way to go into the Adidas Silver, and it's not as prestigious anymore. So you'd have to be a lot more specific. I like to give advice that's more specific because it differs. How important is it for players to play, Coach Johnson 2022, how important is it for players to play the positions that they're more than likely project to be in high school when they're in 8th grade? In 8th grade, they want to be playing the position that is as close as possible in high school in their career. Now, here's the thing. It's all about being positionless anyway. So pretty much everyone needs to be able to play on the perimeter. Almost everyone needs to be able to play on the perimeter. But it's not as important as you think. Because if you're playing in the post, there's a lot of things that happen in the post that can help you with the perimeter. And there's a lot of things doing on the perimeter that can help you on the post. So as long as you're improving your fundamental skill set as a basketball player, passing, catching, pivoting, shooting, everyone should be doing that and trying to be doing what their position is. I've seen, let me give you an example. I had a player called, his name's Reed Farley. He's at Harvard, and he was always like my tallest player, but we always knew like he was like a 3. We didn't know how big he would be. And number one, he always had to guard the biggest player, which I think was, he would guard people on the perimeter, but he also guard bigger players. So on defense, it's like you just get better by bigger people. And also he was really smart. So he was one of those guys that could defend more than one player. I highly recommend on defense, you being a player, not only can you guard your guy, can you guard 2 people at once? There's a lot of times in the game where you can beat a 2-on-1 by jabbing, playing cat and mouse and things like that. The elite players can guard 2 people at once. Think about that. So defensively, it's not that big of a deal. People always say, like, what's their IQ? They always think offense. What about defense? So I would say put them at their position. Depends on your philosophy as a team. Now, one of the processes and philosophies I had is I would do things for the player that would help them in their career in the long term. And a lot of times that will hurt you in the short term. So you're going to have to address that as well. For example, let's say you're coaching a 5th or 6th grade team. Would you rather have a kid you're down by 1? he can make it with his right hand, but he's on the left side and he should do a left-hand layup. What do you want him to do? That's my question for you. Because developing the offhand would be best for him in the long term, but him just making it with the right hand is better for the team in that moment. So you need a balance of that. You got to think about, remember that if you guys ever seen White Man Can't Jump, his wife or his girlfriend, Gloria, used to say, sometimes when you win, you really lose. And that, I finally think I figured out what that means the most this year. Sometimes when you win, you really lose. And sometimes when you lose, you really win. Sometimes when you tie, you either win or lose or something like that. So let's go. Coming up from Arkansas, what brand do you think is the best to be sponsored by? Depends on what. Do you like gear? Depends on your taste. I still like Nike gear. They all have their, like anything in life, they all have their pros and cons. Hello, Jordan says. Bryce Youngbull says, what brand has the best teams under their name? That changes from year to year. If you look at our rankings, we have a mix of a bunch. So yeah, I want to go one more thing that I really like in this. I said it earlier in this, but if people that watch it again or whatever read books, rarely meet people that do it. They think they're above it, but just think of it this way: you download software, you update your Snapchat, you update your Instagram. You need to be constantly reading because that's downloading stuff into your brain. So why do you care about your computer more than your own body? NBA_Lucci says, is it a must to be able to play all positions in today's game because you see players 6'8" playing guards? Yes and no. I think that keep it simple. Become indispensable player by doing these things. Let's go back to common sense. Do you rebound well? That doesn't matter what position you are because a point guard needs to be able to rebound. Kevin, what was the coach? He used to coach at USC, Pac-12 announcer, said that every time his point guard got 5 or more rebounds, he won every game. So do you rebound? Do you pass and share the ball? Do you communicate? Can you hit open shots? Can you get people open? Do you move without the ball? Most importantly, this is every single position. This is how I would frame your question. How good is your footwork? Because have you ever met someone that had really good footwork and feet and hands that wasn't good at basketball? They're usually pretty good, right? That's the common denominator. So basketball starts with your feet first. Feet first. That's where everything starts. Footwork has got to be paramount to be good at this game. So I would say yes. Now, there's some players, the way that their body moves, they will never be a guard. And they're going to have to look themselves in the mirror. There's just no way they'll ever be a guard. So it's better to be an undersized post, I think, if there's no and try to do something that you're not going to be able to do. Okay. So that's interesting. A lot of people are asking about positions. You see players 6'8" playing guards. Yeah, if you are an outlier and you can be Scotty Barnes and play point guard, yeah, more power to you. But don't ignore the post game. That's what I'd say. This is like the reverse. I like to do the reverse of what everyone's doing. I think it's all like let's go back into playing out of the post now. Thank you, man. Talk to you soon. Where are you guys all going for your tournaments here coming up? I want to see you guys. One of my favorite chapters of all time is this book called The Inner Game of Tennis. It's another secret is I pull from things that you guys are not reading. Guaranteed. So this book was the first one that taught me about the inner game of tennis is about the two parts that you have. You ever shoot the ball and you do something wrong and you're like, I'll say for me, it's like, God damn, Brian, why can't you hit a shot today? You ever heard someone talk to themselves like that? Well, the book says, who are you talking to? Is there two people? And what it found out was, okay, here's what the book says. Let me read this to you. The problems which most perplex tennis players are not those dealing with the proper way to swing a racket. Books and professionals giving this information abound. Nor do most players complain excessively about physical limitations. I want you guys to listen to this. This is about positions too. The most common complaint of sportsmen ringing down the corridors of the ages is, it's not that I don't know what to do, it's that I don't do what I know. Let me read that again. It's not that I don't know what to do. This is for coaches too. It's that I don't do what I know. Who's the best underrated 2022 player? Doesn't really get recognized. That's a tough one. I love the upside of DJ Dudley. He's a kid out of here in San Diego. But we'll see. So I play better in practice than I do. The players complain. I play better in practice than I do during the match. You ever meet someone like that? I know exactly what I'm doing on my forehand. I just can't seem to break the habit. When I'm really trying to do the stroke the way it says to, best player in 2021 is here. Who's that? The book, I flub a shot every time. When I concentrate on one thing I'm supposed to be doing, how about that? I concentrate on one thing I'm supposed to be doing, but then I forget the other thing. Number 6. Every time I get near match point against a good player, I get so nervous I lose my concentration. And the last one, I'm my own worst enemy. I usually beat myself. I got to read that again to you. I'm my own worst enemy. I usually beat myself. Most players of any sport run into these similar difficulties frequently, but it's not so easy to gain practical insight into how to deal with them. So, it's the psychological game. You have to be confident and possess the will to win, or else you'll always be a loser. But how can one be confident or develop the proper mental attitudes to do that? And I used to say this. It's a good thought. It's a good thought and experiment to think about. NBA Lucci. All right, good, man. I would love to see you. All you need is the first chapter. If you can download The Inner Game of Tennis, game changer. So I used to say the fact that this is a mind trick. Do you make the shot? No. Do you get confidence because your shot's going in, or does the shot go in because you have confidence? And I used to say it's better to just have core confidence by just being confident that you know how to make shots and you'll make shots. But the other side of that, which is hard to not address, but the other side is you start making shots, so then you get confidence. Well, think about the pitfall of that is that it's called situational confidence. So your confidence is reliant upon something externally happening. And the other one is inner confidence, if this makes sense, that you have a little bit more control of, even if it's a little bit delusional. And then you start making shots because you're confident. So you got to reverse the chicken and the egg. I like players that have core confidence, not situational confidence. There's a lot of people that derive their confidence from the situation that they're in. You take them out of the situation, they don't have as much confidence. And I don't like that. So my Instagram live just shut off because my phone was out, but I'm going to keep going on YouTube Live. So the last thing I will say is go to this thing in 2 minutes. Okay, this is a great one for coaches, okay? I too admit to over-teaching as a new pro, but one day when I was in a relaxed mood, I began saying less and noticing more. Let me just mark this down. I began saying less and noticing more. To my surprise, errors that I saw but didn't mention were correcting themselves without the student ever knowing he had made them. How were the changes happening? Though I found this interesting, it was a little hard on my ego, which didn't quite see how it was going to get its due credit for the improvements being made. It was an even greater blow when I realized that sometimes my verbal instructions seemed to decrease the probability of the desired correction occurring. So what's happening is you're giving feedback to the player and they're getting worse. Why? All teaching pros know what I'm talking about. Giving all these, relax, bend your knees, shoot, all that stuff was making the players worse. So whatever's going on in their head, it's too damn much. You can't. What did Yogi Berra say? You can't think and play baseball at the same time. So the next session, I promised myself I would cut down on the quantity of my verbal instructions. My next lesson that day was with a beginner named Paul who had never held a racket. Let me charge my phone so I can get back on real fast. So he's with a beginner. I was determined to show him how to play using as few instructions as possible. I tried to keep his mind uncluttered and see if it made a difference. So I started by telling Paul I was trying something new. I was going to skip entirely my usual explanations to beginning players about proper grip, stroke, footwork for the basic forehand. Instead, I was going to hit 10 forehands myself, and I wanted him to watch carefully. So the pro was going to do it. He was going to watch him carefully, watch the details. But instead of not thinking about what I was doing, simply try to grasp a visual image of the forehand. He was to repeat the image in his mind several times, then just let his body imitate. After I had hit 10 forehands, Paul imagined himself doing the same. So the pro did 10 forehands, then he watched, visualized, and imagined himself doing exactly what the pro did. Then, as I put the racket into his hand, sliding it into the correct grip, he said to me, I noticed that the first thing you did was to move your feet. I replied with a non-committal grunt and asked him to let his body imitate the forehand as well as it could. He dropped the ball, took a perfect backswing, swung forward, racket level, and with natural fluidity, ended the swing at shoulder height. Perfect for his first attempt. But wait, his feet, they hadn't moved an inch from the perfect ready position he had assumed before taking his racket back. They were nailed to the court. I pointed to them and Paul said, oh yeah, I forgot about them. The one element of the stroke Paul had tried to remember was the one thing he didn't do. Everything else had been absorbed and reproduced without a word being uttered or instruction being given. So beginning to learn what all good pros and students of tennis must learn, that images are better than words, showing is better than telling, too much instruction worse than none, and that trying often produces negative results. One question perplexed me. What's wrong with trying? What does it mean to try too hard? So this is the interesting part. This is where you're going to get your bang for your buck. This is about reading 2 pages. 2 pages that change your life. That's it. You throw the rest away. Who cares? Reflect, playing out of your mind. Reflect on the state of the mind of a player who's said to be hot or playing in the zone. Is he thinking about how he should hit each shot? Is he thinking at all? Listen to the phrases commonly used to describe a player at his best. He's out of his mind. He's playing over his head. He's unconscious. He doesn't know what he's doing. The common factor in each of these descriptions is that some part of the mind is not so active. Athletes in most sports use similar phrases, and best of them know that their peak performance never comes when they're thinking about it. Clearly, to play unconsciously does not mean to play without consciousness. That would be quite difficult. In fact, someone playing out of his mind is more aware of the ball, the court, and when necessary, his opponent. But he is not aware of giving himself a lot of instructions, thinking about how to hit the ball, how to correct past mistakes, how to repeat what he just did. He's conscious, but he's not thinking. He's not over trying. One thing, when you're in the zone, I used to joke. I said, don't even try. Don't even try not to try. Don't even try not to try. So wrap your head around that for a little bit. A player in the state knows where he wants the ball to go, but he doesn't have to try hard, quote, try hard to send it there. It just seems to happen, and often with more accuracy than he could have hoped for. The player seems to be immersed in a flow of action which requires his energy, yet results in greater power and accuracy. The hot streak usually continues until he starts thinking about it and tries to maintain it. As soon as he attempts to exercise control, he loses it. So this is about letting go after the training comes. I like this little, you want some gamesmanship? Test this theory in a simple manner. If you don't mind a little underhanded gamesmanship, the next time your opponent is having a hot streak, simply ask him as you switch courts, say, George, what are you doing so differently that's making your forehand so good today? If he takes the bait, 95% will, and begins to think about how he's swinging, telling you how he's really meeting the ball out in front, keeping his wrist firm, blah, 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 he will lose his timing and fluidity as he tries to repeat what he just told you that he's doing so well. It's the difference between being in your head and outside of your head. If someone's out of their mind playing unconscious and you can snap them into their head, you can slow them down. It's kind of like the movie 8 Mile, or when people are freestyle battling. You're trying to hit them at a spot that will make them retreat back into their head. And that's when they know, got him. They try to hit you with something that makes you go back into your head and that thinks. And when you do that, you can't perform as well as when you're out of your head. Who's talking about this stuff? You guys know anybody? But can one to play out of their mind? Okay, so here's the last thing that I'll say, because I'm challenging myself to make a 1-hour video. We're at 47 minutes now. The discovery of the two selves. I talked about player 1 and player 2. When you're talking to yourself, who's doing the talking? If you read all different spiritual books and things like this, they all are talking about this, just in another way. A major breakthrough in my attempts to understand the art of relaxed concentration came when, while teaching, I again began to notice what was taking place before my eyes. Listen to the way players talk to themselves on the court. Come on, Tom, meet the ball in front of you. You know, they're talking, the commands are endless. For some, it's like hearing a tape recording of the last lesson playing inside their head. Then after the shot is made, another thought flashes through the mind. It might be expressed as follows. You clumsy ox. Your grandmother could play better. One day I asked myself, one day he asked himself an important question. Who was talking to whom? Who was scolding? Who was being scolding? I'm talking to myself. But just who is this I and who is myself? Obviously, the I and the myself are separate entities, or there would be no conversation. So one could say that within each player, there are two selves. One, the I, that is, you have the I that's giving the instruction. Come on, Tom, why are you not doing it like this way? And you have yourself that's doing the action. So you have the person talking to yourself, two selves. So for clarity, let's call the person giving the instructions self 1 and the person doing it self 2. Self 1, self 2. So the inner game of tennis, self 1 and self 2. The relationship between self 1 and self 2. The key to better tennis or basketball, whatever, lies in improving the relationship between the conscious teller, self 1, and the natural capabilities of self 2. The typical relationship between self 1 and self 2, imagine that instead of being parts of the same person, self 1, the teller, and self 2 are two separate persons. How would you characterize the relationship after witnessing the following conversation between them? The player on the court is trying to make a stroke improvement. Okay, damn it, keep your stupid wrist firm, he orders. Then as ball after ball comes over the net, self one reminds self two, keep it firm, keep it firm, keep it firm. Monotonous? Think how self two must feel. It seems as though self one thinks self two doesn't hear well or has a short memory or is stupid. The truth is, of course, that self two, which includes the unconscious mind and nervous system, hears everything, never forgets anything, and is anything but stupid. After hitting the ball firmly once, it knows forever which muscles to contract to do it again. That's its nature, self two. And what's going on during the hit itself? If you look closely at the face of the player, you will see that his cheek muscles are tightening and his lips are pursed in effort and attempted concentration. But tightened face muscles aren't required to hit the backhand, nor do they help concentration. Who's initiating that effort? Self one, of course, but why? He's supposed to be the teller, not the doer. But it seems he doesn't really trust self two to do the job, or else he wouldn't have to do all the work himself. This is the nub of the problem. Self one doesn't trust self two. Even though it embodies all the potential you have developed up to that moment, everything that you've done in youth basketball from when you started to when you ended, hopefully in the right way. Some people shouldn't trust themselves because they don't have the right training. Even though it embodies all the potential you've developed up to that moment, is far more competent. Self two is far more competent to control the muscle system than self one. Self one is the enemy right now. Back to our player. His muscles tense and over effort. Contact is made with the ball. There's a slight flick of the wrist and the ball hits the back fence. You bum, you'll never learn how to hit a backhand. Self one complains by thinking too much and trying too hard. Self one has produced tension and muscle conflict in the body. He's responsible for the area, but he blames it on self two. And then by condemning it further, undermines his own confidence in self two. As a result, the stroke grows worse and frustration builds. That's the trying too hard from self one. That's what happened to Kobe Bryant in Game 7 against the Celtics when he couldn't hit a shot and he had one of the worst games of his life. He was trying too hard. That's one of the best chapters of all time. So much focus. So sometimes really underrated things, you want to do something that no one else does. Visualize the self two making free throws, making that big shot, replay it over and over again. You will get better. Science is behind it. It seems weird, but it works. And if it works, I say do it. You're not hurting anybody. So that is our show today. I hope you like the format. On my goal to reach 1,000 subscribers. That's my goal. So I need to put out good content. If you got some things out of this, leave a comment. Also leave a comment of how you're going to discipline yourself, one, to stop hurting yourself too. And as always, go to IndiHoops.com, email info@IndiHoops.com, follow us, and we'll see you next time.